This is Best Buy's 1 million-foot distribution warehouse in Dinuba, California. Nearly 400 people work there, making it one of the city's biggest employers. But the warehouse's real value? Every item shipped from it to a buyer in California is subject not just to a state sales tax, but also a local sales tax. Those taxes, totaling tens of millions of dollars since 2016, have all gone to Dinuba. But here's the real kicker. The city then sends a large chunk of those sales tax revenues back to Best Buy. More than $50 million since 2016.
What people don't necessarily understand in California, at least, is that when we buy something, the local portion of the sales tax that we think is helping support our community is actually going to someplace hundreds of miles away, and that half of that is often going to some of the biggest names in the retail industry.
It's not just Dinuba. Dozens of other cities throughout the state have entered these hidden tax-sharing agreements. The result is a system that funnels millions of sales tax dollars from throughout the state, money that could be going to pay for roads, schools, and police, to a handful of cities and some of the biggest names in e-commerce. It's all thanks to a 1950s-era law known as the Bradley-Burns Sales Tax Act that was never updated for the internet age.
There is an innate unfairness about the way that Bradley-Burns is distributed.
We did nothing illegal.
That you have the richest, biggest companies in the world manipulating our tax system, disadvantaging all the other taxpayers in our state, and it needs to be stopped.
If you see these sidewalks around here, they were all built recently. Otherwise, this was all barren.
Dr. Kuldeep Tusu sits on Dinuba's city council. He's taking us on a tour to show off recent improvements to the city's infrastructure.
So we not only created this path, we created the walkway, and so that it became safe for kids to go walk through.
Dinuba is a small farming community in the state's Central Valley, about 30 miles from Fresno.
Dinuba was founded in the early 1900s. It's on a rail line where the farmers would bring their goods to market. The poverty rate is actually higher in Dinuba than the state average. Crime rates are a little higher too. Dinuba's agreement with Best Buy started in 2016. Under this agreement, if you buy something online at bestbuy.com, no matter where you are in California, Dinuba gets this 1 percentage point increment of the sales tax that you're paying on it. Dinuba then gives half of it to Best Buy, and then it also gives another 10% of it to the consultant who brokered the deal. Even though they're giving away 60% of it, the 40% they keep is quite significant.
The dollars that we get from Best Buy, in addition to help us with infrastructure projects and other projects, has a big impact on the safety component for our town.
It's kept them fiscally solvent, more stable than a lot of their neighbors.
Neighbors such as Reedley, just a few miles from Dinuba. Reedley was founded around the same time as Dinuba, has a similar population, and its economy is also built on agriculture.
They're sister cities, really, and if you look at them on a map, their grids are even laid out the same.
There is one major difference.
In 2023, Dinuba's annual sales tax revenue was more than $21 million, and Reedley's was $2.25 million.
There was a dramatic split when the Best Buy agreement was done in the city of Dinuba.
Nicole Ziba is Reedley's city manager. She's frustrated that every time one of her residents makes an online purchase at Best Buy, not only does it fill Dinuba's coffers, Best Buy also gets a cut.
We have lost staff to the city of Dinuba because they're able to pay more than we can.
There's definitely some tension there.
In the 1950s, cities across California were racing to create their own sales taxes to fund their growing communities. State lawmakers created the Bradley-Burns Uniform Local Sales and Use Tax Law, or just Bradley-Burns. It allowed jurisdictions to impose an up to 1% local sales tax on top of the state sales tax.
So a consumption tax is a tax on the consumer for the benefit of consuming.
Darian Shansky teaches tax law at the UC Davis School of Law. He says Bradley Burns was designed to send the local sales taxes it collected to the location where the good was sold.
And that is known as an origin system of sourcing sales.
In the pre-internet world, this made sense.
The services surrounding your ability to go shopping in your community needs to be paid for, so let's make sure that those local governments are getting a slice of it.
But when we buy something online, the connection between the local store and the buyer is no longer there. If there is no physical store, but there's still a local sales tax, what locality gets the credit for the sale?
Typically, these days, where there's a warehouse, where the transaction would be fulfilled.
That's right, a warehouse. Even though the buyer isn't there, the seller isn't there, the store's headquarters aren't even there. It's just a place for an item to sit until it's shipped. Giant retailers and tech companies who sell stuff online realized a Golden State-sized opportunity.
If you're a big company that is fulfilling a lot of orders, the site of your warehouse is going to be the site of a gigantic amount of sales tax revenue. And so you can now have an auction with all these different jurisdictions saying, if you want the warehouse, what are you going to do for me? And the answer that many of these jurisdictions have come up with is say, well, no, we'll do. We'll give you half the sales tax back. How's that? And my home jurisdiction gets nothing.
California is one of the only states that does it this way. And because it's the country's largest economy, it's where the big money is for these deals. So how many of these deals exist in California? And how lucrative are they for the companies and cities involved?
It's very difficult to find information about these agreements.
Laura Mahoney covers tax policy in California for Bloomberg Tax. Her reporting has unearthed details on some of the biggest deals.
They're buried. They're not necessarily posted anywhere. Cities aren't publicizing that they exist. I've had to do a lot of California Public Records Act requests for this information.
She found that just 5 cities have funneled nearly $270 million to some of the biggest names in e-commerce.
Nobody knows exactly how many there are, but of the ones that I am tracking, it's hundreds of millions of dollars that are going from the cities back to these companies.
Under that tax scheme, about 5% or so of cities who have made these deals with the devil, are the winners, and everybody else loses.
State Senator Steve Glazer represents a largely suburban district east of Oakland. In 2021, Glazer introduced a bill to bring more transparency to the process. He says the reason there isn't more opposition is that the cities without deals don't even know how much they're losing out on.
We didn't really have a clear picture of who were the winners and who were the losers under these tax schemes.
So you have a collective action problem where the winners have a lot of incentive to keep things in place, and it's not clear how much the losing jurisdictions have to lose.
Glazer's bill was vetoed by Governor Gavin Newsom. The governor also killed an earlier bill that would have ended the deals outright, saying he didn't want to hurt the economies of the cities with deals.
It's good public policy for the state to eliminate these loopholes and to give the public confidence that our tax system is being implemented in a fair way.
This chart shows what could happen if Bradley Burns is updated so that the local sales taxes go to the city where the buyer is located. These 267 cities, including Reedley, are projected to gain revenue. Some, like Carmel and Davis, would gain more than 25% in additional local sales tax revenue. 98 cities would lose revenue. Some, like Dinuba and Cupertino, significantly.
If, God forbid, we lose the monies, we are left with nothing. We are decimated.
So I think the argument that this is the only way we can fund public services, I think that argument is a false argument. In 2020, the city of Reedley made the very hard decision to go out for a sales tax increase. Today, we're on a firm fiscal footing. We have a strong general fund reserve.
Really, if they had an opportunity, they should have done a similar deal too.
Every city doesn't necessarily want to create the environmental hazards that other cities have created.
So what's next? In addition to the California legislature, an association representing the state's 482 cities is looking into potential reforms.
It's very difficult for them to get their members to agree on a solution because their members are winners and their members are losers.
Meanwhile, advocates of reform are hoping to capitalize on growing anger over these hidden tax-sharing deals, before attention inevitably turns to the myriad other challenges facing the state.
Starving the public sector and misallocating resources from where they belong, or even worse, just giving them away altogether for no good reason, it matters because we need those resources to do good things.